shit, I forgot my camera. So I'm playing around with reciprocity failure at the moment, and I've practiced that word, so I think I've said it right. But I'm dabbling around with that with various films, and I've decided to start off with Ilford's 100 Delta. Now, I did record a video a couple of weeks ago, but it all went tits up on me, and it didn't come out as good as I intended. Basically, it got too dark during the shoot. However, I did get a couple of decent shots of the windmill while I was there, which was the last video that I made. So I already had the footage from the original long exposure video that I was trying to make, which became a failure, and I put that together. So that's what I'm going to be showing you now. I've gone back to the windmill with a Chinon SC 35mm camera and another roll of Ilford Delta 100, and this time I managed to get some decent results. But I'll show you what happened last time, and then we'll come into what I was shooting today, and I'll show you a couple of prints that I've been working on. Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to the windmill. I'm at the windmill today in Bembridge on the Isle of Wight. I did plan to go down the beach for some more long exposure photography at a different beach, but it's just too windy on this late Sunday afternoon. Waiting for the light to get a little bit lower so I can get some longer exposures, but now I'm starting to get really cold. And the tide's high as well, so it wasn't really going to suit. I thought the tide would be mid to low tide, but the tide's quite high, so if I get down there it's just going to be windy. I'm going to get sand all over me. But however, today is quite cloudy, and with the wind as well, I'm hoping I'll be able to get some decent long exposure cloud photography at this windmill here. Now, if you see my last video about long exposures and that word reciprocity failure, I'm no technician, I'm no whiz kid when it comes to technical stuff or any chemistry or physics or science or maths by any means. So I had to do a little bit of research online about the reciprocity failure, and to be honest with you, I didn't have a clue what they was all talking about when they started getting into the physics and maths of it. But at the end of the day, I just thought to myself, well, if I can compensate for the failure on film as opposed to digital, then I can't go wrong. But first of all, I needed to do some tests. Now I'm going to be using Ilford's Delta 100 film today, a nice low ISO film, and it should be able to give me longer time exposures as well. But before I shot, before I'm going to shoot today, I decided to do a quick test at home on the reciprocity failure on Ilford's Delta 100 by using the data sheet from Ilford. Each film has its own characteristics and its own unique way of handling reciprocity failure, and Ilford have a good technical information sheet available online which shows the factors for each film they produce. It gets a bit technical, but all I need to know is how to calculate the correct exposure time when I'm metering the scene, and this technical sheet does just that. The rest of it I'll just trial and error over time. Before I get down to the beach and try out some more long exposures, I want to try a little test out indoors. I'm using Ilford's Delta 100 film. This is my scene, and I'm going to shoot a series of exposures using my Olympus OM20. Using Ilford's chart and a calculator, I just tap my metered exposure time in, press the XY button, and then put the value in according to whatever film I'm using. In this case, it's the Delta 100. So if my meter time says 8 seconds, and I calculate 8 XY 1.26, it will give me an exposure time of 13.73 seconds. So I'll just round that up to 14 seconds. So my reciprocity failure at 8 seconds for this film is going to be 14 seconds. Well, at least that's what I think. So I've metered my scene, which is a wooden toy, and took 8 photographs, stopping down my aperture by 1 stop each photograph and compensating the exposure by stopping up the shutter speed by 1 stop. So in effect, all of my photographs should look identical. At 1/4, 1/2 and 1 second speeds, I didn't need to allow for reciprocity failure, but at 2 seconds, 4 seconds, 8 seconds and 60 seconds I did. Ilford say reciprocity failure for Delta 100 starts at ½ a second, but I started at 1 second. For the 60-second exposure, I used a 3-stop ND filter. 3 stops up from 8 seconds is 60 seconds. After I took my test photographs, I developed them in Ilford's Perceptol and made a contact print in the Darkroom. This is the contact print that I've made, and you can see the compensated exposure times in red. You'll see at 2 seconds I worked it out to be 2.5 seconds, 4 seconds was 6 seconds, 8 seconds was 14 seconds, and 60 seconds was 174 seconds. The last photo I took was at 60 seconds, not allowing for any reciprocity failure at all, and you can see it's slightly darker. And then I got a bit confused because there's 2 data sheets I noticed for Ilford Reciprocity Failure. One that I'm going to be using and one that I used in the video that I just showed you. And the other one is like a curve line reciprocity failure chart. And it kind of threw me off because that one showed longer exposures than the math chart that I was looking at. But I've decided to go with the math chart. I've got my calculator, my phone's got a scientific calculator on it, the app. So I'm going to be using that to calculate my exposures. So I'll just show you the gear that I'm going to be using. I've bought out the Mamiya 645 today. Last time I was using, and if you can hear wind, guys, coming through my mic, it's really windy up here, so I apologise for that. It might be all right, I don't know. But I'm going to be using the Mamiya 645, and I've stuck the attachment on as well, so I can use the shutter release cable for my longer exposures. And I've got a, what lens have I got? It's a wide lens, so it'll be the 45mm, which is, I think is equivalent to 28 on a 35mm camera. So I'm going to be using the Mamiya 645 with the Ilford Delta 120 roller film inside. And I've also brought along my Olympus OM10 as well. I might just take a few shots because I'm playing around with some P30 film at the moment, and I've got a few shots left of it, so I might use this and just grab a few shots for that film. I'll maybe do another video on that at some point, but I've got that in the bag as well. And I've got my light meter here, but I don't think I'm going to use it. I think I'm going to use my DSLR just to give me some Polaroids, if you like, before I start shooting the film. The last video I showed you, I didn't have my DSLR with me. I just relied on the incident light readings that I took off this Minolta light meter. So I think I'm going to use the DSLR to do some exposures, but I've got this anyway. And I've also got my little notebook to write down my times. My shutter release cable's here, flapping about. What else have I got? And a timer. Bought a little timer out with me as well. So the sun's going to set probably in the next hour or so. So I've got about an hour to have a little look around, plot up. I've got 15 shots in this camera, so there's no way I'm going to be doing 15 long exposures. So I might take some nice silhouette shots of the Windmill as it is at the moment, and use a few frames at the end to do some longer exposures. We're hoping to hit into the kind of 2-3 minute exposure times, and what I'm hoping for is to get this Windmill. I don't think there's going to be any light on the Windmill, so it might be silhouetted, but if I can get, all I'm looking for is a subject with the clouds. So I'm just looking for cloud long exposure photography. It's quite cloudy up there, it's very windy, so they're going to move, and hopefully that Windmill don't. So, but I just wanted to get some kind of object in the photograph to complement the clouds. So let's see what happens. I'm going to take a few shots first of all around the Windmill as it is at the moment, and then get on with the long exposure stuff in a little while. It's not too difficult really to find angles around this Windmill. You know, you just walk around and look up and see what you fancy. I've taken a few shots. I think I've taken 5 shots, 5 or 6, I can't remember now. But they was all at f11 at 15th of a second, which is what my DSLR gave me. I used the meter on my DSLR just so I could silhouette the Windmill and get those nice moody clouds in the background. See how it looks, I don't know yet, obviously, because there's no image on the back of the Mamiya, but when I develop, I'll soon be able to see, write my stuff down here. And, you know, learn as I go along, I suppose, but I'm sure they'll come out all right. I took a few over there in the brambles and some up at the background there and a few closer ones looking up. But it's a bit of a shame that the sails aren't on the mill, but it's not often that they come down, so maybe that's a bit of a bonus, is catching the mill without the sails on. I'm going to take a couple more shots, but like I said, I'm going to save a few for the longer exposure stuff when it gets a bit darker. So I'm anticipating to be here when it's dark. I haven't got a video light with me, so when it gets dark, I'm just going to have to crank the ISO up, and you'll have to suffer the rest with a bit of grain, I'm afraid, in the video. But I'm just going to move around, crack a few more shots off on this, maybe use the Olympus as well and get a few shots. And I'll turn the video camera off now, and I'll come back when it's darker. Okay, so hopefully the wind's not distracting too much, but I'm ready to take some pics now. And I've got the ISO set to 6400 on that DSLR, but it's quite dark. I've just meted my first shot, which is I've got f16 at 10 seconds, so I just need to type that into that calculator. Hopefully I can nail this. Let's see what happens. Just turn this way away from the wind. I'm getting cold too, so my hands ain't working. It's bloody windy. Right, hang on. So we've got 10 XY 1.26. It's given me 18 seconds, so my first shot's going to be 18 seconds. I'm not going to write this down, but I've got it on my video to write down later. So not 18, yeah, 18 seconds. So let's do the first one at 18 seconds. I'm in bulb mode as well with my cable release. And right, ready to take 18 seconds. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's that one done. I'm now going to do another one at 10 seconds, just so I can see the difference between the normal exposure and the reciprocity exposure, if that's the right term. So let's do 10 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, I'll wait for it to get a little bit darker so I can start doing some longer exposures. So I'm still at f16, and I've just done another meter. It's got a bit darker, so I'm now going to go for 20 seconds exposure. So let's just work that out. 20 XY 1.26 gives me 43 seconds. So actually 43, just over half. So I'm going to go for 44 seconds on this one. See what happens. Turn the light off. What did I say? 44 seconds. Oh, getting cold now. Okay, 44 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Okay, guys. So I've got two shots left in the camera, and it's pretty dark now. So I'm going to go for longer exposures. I've just metered at 120 seconds. I've worked that out on the calculator. I think it was 416 seconds. Worked that out in minutes, and it works out nearly 8 minutes. So I'm going to go for, as the light's going to get darker, I'm just going to go for a 10-minute exposure. Let's see what happens. This is going to take a while, but I'll put my thing here 10 minutes, calculate 10 minutes, hit the thingy-majig. So that was a complete failure last time. Basically, it just started getting too dark, and I couldn't see anything. And trying to do long exposures, I just lost all the light. I still made a couple of prints, which I made a video on last time on the Windmill, and but the long exposure ones, they was okay, but not what I wanted. So I've come back, and this time I've got the Chinon CS with me, with a roll of Ilford Delta steel 35mm. You might be wondering why I haven't brought the Mamiya out again with the 120, or the medium format camera with the 120 film. Basically, I ran out of the stuff, so all I was left with was a few rolls of 35mm. But it doesn't matter. I'm still going to get some, hopefully get some decent photographs. It's quite cloudy up there. The wind's in my favour, and this time I went out and bought a ND1000 filter for this lens, this wide-angle lens that I've got here, which is a little tiny Hanimex lens. So that's going to give me 10 stops less light. So it's 2:30 at the moment, so it means I'm going to be able to shoot kind of like in the afternoon rather than waiting for it to get darker, and still be able to get my long exposures. So I'm not going to waste any time. Let's crack on and get some photographs. So I don't know if you can see at the moment up there, but when I left, the clouds look really great. I've got here set up, and sod's law, it's just turned into a white blanket. Hopefully, it's quite windy, so hopefully there'll be some more decent clouds coming over. But at the moment, I'm in between a long exposure. I'm metered for 15th of a second at f16. So that's 10 stops from 1/15 of a second. I looked at the chart, it said 1 minute, and then I typed in the calculator the reciprocity value, and it gave me just under 3 minutes, or 174 seconds. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. It's my first shot, so I'm not expecting much because it's just gone like a blanket of white up there. So we'll hang around, see what else happens. It seriously is not my idea of fun. It's just typical, you know, you plan to do a shoot and you come out and it looks great, and then when you get to where your location you want to be, the wind picks up, the cloud gets thicker, it pisses down with rain, and it gets a lot colder too. And I've only brought my body warmer out because it felt all right when I left. Oh well, shit happens. So I've now come right to the back of the field, and it's quite useful that it's windy, obviously, because I want the clouds to move. But I've come right back here so I can get a much wider composition of the Windmill with the clouds and all this nice grass around me as well. So the light's quite nice, but doing these long exposures, the sun's going to come in and out. So I'm trying to make my exposure for when the sun's out. But it's just touch and go. As it goes in, obviously it's changing the exposure value. So as much as I've calculated the exposure I need, what with the sun going in and out, I'm kind of just clutching at straws and stopping the exposure when I think I need to. But hey, let's see what we get. So I'm just, if my hands are looking like this because I'm trying to cover the mic, it's really windy up here, it's blowing a gale. But I'm pretty much done. I can't remember how many shots I've taken now, probably about 10 shots, and the last few I did exposures of just under 3 minutes, then I did 2 minutes, and then I did 1 minute, just to see what happens. I've probably got half of this film left, so what I'm going to do, get back, cut the film out of the camera in the darkroom, and save the rest of the roll for another day, and get developing what I've taken here. You know, this video is only about me experimenting with some long exposures and the reciprocity failure as well. So, you know, lots more to learn about it, but it's a good start, I suppose. Let's get back, develop this film, and hopefully this time I can get a decent, noticeable long exposure on the clouds and that Windmill as well. Let's go and have a cup of tea. So this is one of the prints I made. The cloud, you know, it wasn't, ideally it would have been nice big white fluffy clouds creeping along over a blue sky, maybe stick a red filter on at the same time. It is what it is. So I was quite happy with the way it came out. And this particular print, you can see here I've over dodged this area, but it doesn't matter because that's where the rain spot was on my lens during a long exposure, you see it? So once I did that and I saw that, I just thought, you know what, I'm not even going to bother trying to remake this print at all, because that's just going to ruin it. So I scrapped it and went on to another negative, which is this one here. I'm quite happy with it. We've got a little tiny bit of, I don't know if you can see it in the light there. I've got a little, you can see the clouds exposure there, the long exposure on the clouds there, which looks okay. And I burnt the top of it in, went a bit over the top with the border, but that's another story. But then I decided to start working on the bottom here on the grass. Just need it a little bit lighter and the windmill to show a little bit more. Quite happy with the sky, but the rest of it I just need to work on. So I started doing some tests. And these are all the tests that I was playing around with. But this is the one I was more interested in. So continue on. This is just a 5x7 piece of paper, and the original exposure was 30 seconds with some dodging in between with the grass and stuff. But I needed to do another test strip just on the grass itself. Forget the sky. I just needed to do a test strip on the grass. And there it is there at 7 seconds. So you can see I've got now nice highlight detail in the grass, a little bit in the windmill. So with this print, I'm quite happy with it at the moment. It was a 30-second exposure on the enlarger, but using that test strip I just showed you, which gave me a decent ground for 7 seconds, I'm going to need to literally cover this area. So I'm going to need to start off with 30 seconds and then cover this area from kind of like 23 seconds onwards. So this only gets about 7 seconds. So you can see I've got the negative already sitting in the enlarger, and as normal I like using this square template that I use. That's what I'm going to be using and inserting the image inside that. And there's a bottle of Heineken there, refreshes parts other beers can't reach apparently. This is Kentmere paper, this is what I'm using. I like this paper, and there's my developing trays there. So you can see I've tiered them up just to save a bit of room. Just very careful that I don't spill any chemicals inside any other trays, if you like. So right, let's carry on. So hopefully you guys can see what I'm doing, and it's not too grainy on the video. But basically the tools that I'm going to be, I'm a bit messy in here tonight guys, sorry. But basically the tools I'm going to be using is, I've got this little burn tool here. This is going to, I'll show you afterwards when I've done the print what I'm doing with this, but this is going to burn the bottom of the windmill. I've got this little tool, it's basically a pencil on the back of a card. This is going to burn the bottom of the grass and stuff, and this little tiny tip of the pencil is just going to help with the concrete on the windmill. So that's the idea. And then a little circular dodge tool as well, just so I can start vignetting and playing around with the sky and, you know, making that work. So these are the tools. Let's get some paper out, put it on here, clamp it down, and hopefully get a decent print. Overall, it's not a bad print. In fact, I'm really happy with the way it come out. I'm certainly glad that I come away from the fenced area and walked right to the back of the field. It just gave me a lot more in the sky to play around with. But I'll show you the tools that I was using anyway. So the overall projection was 30 seconds, but for 23 of those seconds, I covered the ground area and the windmill with this tool here. And just being very careful not to go on the outside of the windmill to halo it. So it's just inside. In fact, you can just see a highlight on the windmill, which I don't mind. It looks quite effective. Looks all right to me. And then I did that for 23 seconds, just doing this. And then after that, I knew that I would get a highlight area here from the pencil. So I used this little hole basically to burn light into this area. And then I burned light into other areas of the grass just to give it a little bit of definition here and there. So that worked out okay. And then I used the dodge tool up against the lens just so I could vignette these areas, which you can see is darker here, it's darker here, and just a little tiny bit of vignetting using this. And the last part was just started to gradient the sky in, like so. By doing that, it just gave me that little tiny bit of exposure, light cloud of the long exposure that I had, just makes it pop a little bit more. So overall, that wasn't a bad shoot at all. I'm really happy with the print that I've made. The first time I went out with the Mamiya the other day, the video that you saw at the start of this video, that was a complete failure really, because I went out late afternoon, and the darker it got, the longer the exposures I had to do. There was no light, so there was no point. Photography is light, and if there's no light, you ain't getting a photograph. And that's what happened in that situation there. The longer I was exposing, the darker it was getting, and I was just fighting a losing battle and running around in circles. That's why I decided to come back to the Windmill with the Chinon 35. I would have come back with the Mamiya 645, but I ran out of 120 film. But today I just saw the clouds. I thought this is a good opportunity, and also I had that ND filter as well, the ND10 filter, which enabled me to go a little bit earlier on in the afternoon where there was decent light, and get some decent exposures and decent shots. I've certainly learnt from this experience of long exposures and playing around with the film's Reciprocity Failure, and I hope you guys have as well. I hope it sort of cleans a few things up for you. My failures are hopefully going to benefit you guys, because it certainly benefits me as well. That's what it's all about at the end of the day, is making mistakes, moving on, and hopefully trying to get a little bit better as you go along, move forward. And that's what I'm trying to do at the moment. So I'm happy with the print that I've made. So there's plenty of sea where I'm living. The next video, or the next long exposure video, will probably be a seascape and maybe a different film, and see how I get on from there. But anyway, guys, I hope you like this video. I must say thank you to all the subscribers, and also I've got to say a big thank you to the guys that support me on Patreon as well, because without their support, I wouldn't be able to make as many videos, buying the paper, buying the chemicals, buying the films and stuff like that. So and also thanks to the people that send me stuff. I really do appreciate it. Thanks a lot, guys, for the comments that you send and the private messages as well. So if you've got experience on long exposure film photography, if you can add anything to this, stick it in the comments below for other people to see as well as me to see. So thanks a lot, guys, really appreciate it, and I'll catch you next time. If you like this video, please hit the subscribe button and the bell so you don't miss the next one.